for that reason. And I was talking to a friend of mine who's from Iran, and he just said, he goes, oh, it's just such a different world here in America versus Iran. He goes, we only eat what's in season, and then there's a couple months where you're just like eating whatever you were able to dry or freeze or can, or salt. And you go, and you get to a point where you're eating the same stuff for weeks on end. And and he goes, we're middle class. It's just that it just wasn't available. And I think that's going to be the biggest shock people are going to have when these supply chains break down, because of the amount of money it's going to cost to transport and or even produce the crops.
With global stock markets on a run in 2019, gaining $17 trillion in value, according to Deutsche Bank's calculations, there's never been a better time in history to invest in cryptocurrency or traditional markets. Trade Genius over the last 60 days has netted its users nearly 180% on their money from stock and crypto trades in both rising and falling prices. With Trade Genius online educational courses and Signal's trading service, you can take advantage of these types of profits every day in the market, even if you've never traded before. Take control of your financial future by learning to trade stocks, cryptocurrency, and binary options with Bob Kudla and Philip Cleaver. TradeGeniusAcademy.com. Learn to make money every day with the pros. The link's in the description box below. And use the promo code WINTER for 45% off non-bundled items. And now, on with the interview.
Now, in the last couple of talks that we've done together, we've both been indicating that food prices are going to increase stealthily until they hit a point where they're going to rise rapidly. It seems like the pullback and usage of all foods that were in the pipe or in the supply chain have now been semi-exhausted, is a good way to put it.
And you're funny about the ATM machines. I went to the same grocery store as my neighborhood grocery store. I went there yesterday, and I was in line, and all of a sudden there's a whole bunch of murmuring going around the whole store. This was 5:00 p.m., when everybody goes to grab their last minute things for dinner. And they made an announcement that the ATM machine went down. ATMs went down. Their processors went down. They can only do cash. And so half the people had to leave the store, and everybody else was running into the parking lot to the two bank ATMs to be able to continue their process. So, it's always good, to not have your eggs in one basket. Have some cash. You're going to need coin of the realm, regardless of how you politically feel about anything. You're going to need the electronic devices, right? And you're going to also need cryptocurrency. And, especially now with cryptos, the halving coming, we're going to start seeing acceleration. I'll send you a chart. We think once the 10,500 gets breached again, then, we're going to test up back towards the old high. And then, God knows how high it's going to go in the halving. People have their speculations. I look at it a couple weeks at a time. But now they have options on the on CME, and I think this time it's been a good guy for the markets versus when we had the futures for cryptos. So there's going to be an opportunity now for people that haven't really speculated in cryptocurrencies to be able to leverage small amounts of money into larger amounts of cryptocurrency. And I think it's some of the things that's what we bring to the table. We have a unit that does nothing but cryptocurrencies. Phil, who runs that for us, is he's a miner from old. So he was there from the very beginning. Nobody knows as much about cryptocurrencies as he does. And he knows it from a trader's perspective. He's a trader. He's a stock trader. He's a crypto trader. He's a Forex trader. He's a brilliant guy. And extremely risk averse in terms of, when trades don't work, you get out and you move on to the next trade. So he's very much, not a swing by the fence guy and just grind your way to profits. And as he always says, everything I do is to stack more Bitcoin. Because when this thing blows sky high, we'll have people in our room, and this is no exaggeration whatsoever. If if Bitcoin goes to 100,000, we'll have people that are in our trading room that'll be worth 10 million US, just because they've been stacking with us now for the last 4 years. And that doesn't mean that 10 million may not mean what it should mean, because who knows what inflation is going to be. But the point is, that's how you prepare. So when I look at things from a macro standpoint, I prepare for my home. I have my bug out kits. I have my food. I have solar energy. I have the ability to make water in my house. I have a garden in my yard. I take care of that. Okay. We have, enough what I would call the medicine supplies to cover us when CVS gets wiped out. From a stock trading standpoint, we know how to trade in and out of a market very, very quickly, so we can take advantage of anything that's happening. And I'll give you an example that's not related to Grand Solar Minimum, but it's ag related, is that the weed stocks popped a couple years ago, and then they've been falling. We put a note out at the end of December saying first quarter the weed stocks are going to probably pop. And lo and behold, by the time the second week of January came, they had what's called a short squeeze, and then we took advantage of a couple trades in that and made people some really good money. We also saw the same thing with the move in palladium and platinum, and we're still trading that. And I'll send you some of those charts of some of the trades that we did, Dave, so you can share with your viewers that just incredible. And it's not over yet. And that's what's going to happen to gold and silver. When everybody around the world gets scared, the bankers have been doing this trick called naked shorting. That's a technical term for meaning that they were committing a fraud. They were selling something they did not own for the benefit of driving the price down below their cost, and they can then profit from that difference. It's actually a business process for them, and they're protected by the government. What doesn't protect them for prosecution is when they run out of the metals that they need to deliver. And that's what happened in palladium and platinum now twice, and we've seen it double. Can you imagine them not being able to satisfy the gold in the vaults and the run we'll have on that and silver, while central banks and wealthy people around the world are grabbing this stuff? And you'll just see a skyrocket. Literally, people will wake up. And that's what I always tell people. You got to get some of this stuff now, because you want to wake up one morning and be like, all right, versus like, and people don't do that. They react instead of proact. And then I'll glide it over with Trump, tying this whole thing together. He scolded the Davos elite, telling them globalism is dead. And we're going back to nationalism. Trump knows whatever you want to say about the guy, he knows where the hockey puck is going. He's preparing his people, and he's going to make sure that we have the manufacturing, we have the ability to have our high tech. He's going to make sure that the Chinese won't take all our food, and I'm sorry for the non-U.S. audience listening to this, is that, he's our guy. You better start pressing your guy, right? And people that listen to this, if they can listen to this in China, the Chinese are actually trying to take care of the Chinese people, but for different reasons. And so if your leader is not making sure that your people have enough food to eat and have enough energy, and Canada's the ultimate failure. I feel so badly for Canadians that your leadership has thrown you overboard. And I just think the western half of Canada will likely secede in the next 10 years once this thing goes. But that's what we do at Trade Genius. We're always looking and watching for opportunities. We jumped on the weed trade. We jumped on the platinum trade. The platinum trade is going to go. Gold and silver miners are going. We're in that trade. And trading food from the stock thing is a little bit hard because of it's mostly futures related, and it's difficult for people to deal with. We dabble in it with some of our subscribers. We do some of our own for ourselves, but that's not where the money is going to be made. You're actually going to make more money shorting the grocery stores when the food prices rise. And we'll teach you how to do that too. So And that's the easy thing to do. It's not as scary as it sounds, but that's who's going to take it. The grocery stores aren't going to be able to keep up with the price rises because they're going to try to hold the line on prices to keep their customers, and it's going to destroy their margins. And we've seen it happen before. And so we know that's the play we take when we do that. And then also real estate will suffer. And so we'll have ways in which we're going to be able to pay for our higher food prices without touching any food stocks in the stock market.
And if I could touch on that as well, with China, I saw a couple reports over this week. They're back at 29-year lows in growth. So you have to go back into the 1990s to find where China is currently with its growth. So with them, country over there being one of the largest engines, when you look outbound, if those orders aren't coming in, it's showing a slowdown already. It's showing that people are, changing their spending habits. I think intuitively people are, gearing down on what was the wild spend of the last decade, where people would just buy things, something like the 1990s. And with Davos, you see it's going to be a forced change economy. It's not going to be an organically changing economy. The corporate media right now, with the narratives they're pushing, whatever she is, or her scaremongering and name calling and whatever it is, that you have to change now, not tomorrow, now, not 2050, now. So you can see the writing on the wall. If you look at the messaging, look through the distraction to see what the real message is being pushed out there. It is one of nationalism will not be accepted, although they're going to have to, because it seems to be a global awakening wherever you look. This nationalist, like our country first, our people first, everybody else can wait in line. But this whole transition to this green economy is being forced. So if they're already going to have people living on rationed electricity and rationed amounts of calories and certain foods that you can't eat, and you've seen this whole thing, demonizing meat and get on the vegan diet and eat insects. I mean, these things are being forced down your throat. There's nothing organic at all. So you can see a gigantic wave coming off the horizon of this that's already been planned for, that they must know these changes that are really, we should have started decades ago to think about these solutions, but it'll be more of a triage event, and they already know that. Government leaders know what's happening with this whole event moving forward.
And if I could jump in on Beyond Meat, Dave, is that
the Beyond Meat that collapsed. Burger King just discontinued the Miracle Burger or Whopper. What did they call that thing?
Yeah, so they announced last week because they're trying to pump the stock that it was going into China, and then this week, basically Burger King is heavily discounting it, probably to get it off their menu, and then Beyond Meat took a whack on that because sales are slowing. It's like everything has a novelty, and but I agree with you. That's the model they're pushing is they want the peasants to eat the crap so that the hoi polloi aren't bothered with not having enough for themselves. And for those who are biblically minded, is that it's the warning from God in the end of the day that you're going to work for your labor for a cup of barley, but don't touch the oil. Meaning that's what oil in the wine. That's what the rich have. The oil in the wine. Barley was a thing where if you worked for, the Roman soldiers, that you got salt, you got barley, you had enough. That was a day's salary, okay, and that was barely enough to keep you alive from a calorie standpoint. But don't touch the oil and wine. Meaning that the wealthy are going to have all what they have. And look at Puerto Rico. It's amazing. Puerto Rico had a real crisis. They blamed President Trump for not responding adequately to the crisis, and now they're finding warehouse after warehouse after warehouse full of all the stuff the United States sent to them because it was simply stolen. It was stolen by the elites in Puerto Rico, the criminal enterprise. And that's why when people talk about politics, why it matters what your politics are, because, socialists, meaning socialists have charge, and it's their people that benefit. Look at Joe Biden and his whole family. They benefited immensely from Joe being in Congress and being a vice president. And the same with Puerto Rico. It's when you have a political system that it's a political machine like Chicago, is that you think you have things like this happen in Puerto Rico, where that food came in, it got parsed out. It didn't get to the people at all. If I was a Puerto Rican in Puerto Rico, I'd be demanding heads on a stick for not getting that food, Dave. So it's amazing.
Let me tell you my own story here. In Czech Republic, the rye bread and the pumpernickel is about 3 times less than the wheat bread is. So when you're talking about some of these, different kinds of grains, I like it, especially when you can put butter on it. You can turn it into toast, harden that up. But to eat it as just a loaf of bread, or if you have a nice French loaf, something light and fluffy made out of wheat, that's pretty easy to eat just by itself. But these really much denser breads of these pumpernickels and rye, heavier taste, you can eat a little bit of it, but, switching over the diet. And then you jump across the border and everything's wheat down here in Austria. So, seeing it firsthand on what the choices were made for people in their livelihoods, or the amount of financial capacity they have to buy something to eat. Just looking at the choices of breads across 2 borders here has been amazing for me. And, I had somebody else biblically check into the weights and measures, and apparently a denarius, that silver coinage at the time of the Roman Empire, when it used to be before debasement, because, the Romans also added a lot of non-precious metals to their precious metals. But apparently at that point, it was 13 pounds of rye for a denarius was the equivalent measurement. Now, I could be wrong, but I'm quoting somebody else who did the biblical measurements, and coming into using the silver coinage of the time of how much wheat or rye that would get you. And then remember, the wheat was 3 times less than the rye. So take that 13 pounds and divide by 3, and then that's what you come out with for the equivalent amount of wheat for that same silver coinage. So again, are we going to say the same things? Having something cost more money is completely different than having something not available at all. So again, I've been looking at the way different fruits and vegetables are maturing at different rates across different latitudes in the hemisphere. If you have the financial means, you would be able to follow the food harvests across the planet. I was talking to somebody in the United States about Florida, and then during the summertime up in the Northeast, Great Lakes area, everything is very abundant up there. So imagine if you're going to be moving like the nomads and the traditional peoples of old did, following the harvest. I mean, do you have enough money to go from Florida up to northern Michigan and then back every single year, twice a year, to follow the food? Because you have to start taking into consideration eventually, will the train ticket, the bus ticket, or the airfare, gasoline price, if it's even available, will that be worth it in terms of the amount of money you would save for food, because foods will not be available in a certain season, versus transiting and migrating to where the food will be abundant? Because what I'm seeing in Czech Republic is their food production is going down hard right now. Everything's out of kilter, and the stone fruits again are getting whacked this year. So the whole fruit production thing across 50 north and above is completely going offline. So that's my own firsthand knowledge and seeing, talking to beekeepers, fruit orchard managers, and also out to the vineyards to see what's happening with their grow this year as well.
Well, here in California, we have actually from Seattle all the way down to Santiago, Chile, is that we have the basically farms that are bringing food into California on a monthly basis, depending on where and what time of the year it is. So like we can get asparagus all year, we can get pomegranates all year, we can get raspberries all year. Just fascinating how we were able to use the latitudes for that reason. And I was talking to a friend of mine who's from Iran, and he just said, he goes, oh, it's just such a different world here in America versus Iran. He goes, we only eat what's in season, and then there's a couple months where you're just like eating whatever you were able to dry or freeze or can, or salt. And you go then, and you get to a point where you're eating the same stuff for weeks on end. And and he goes, we're middle class. It's just that it just wasn't available. And I think that's going to be the biggest shock people are going to have when these supply chains break down, because of the amount of money it's going to cost to transport and or even produce the crops. But I'm always hopeful too. I think where there's a will, there's a way. And you already touched upon that. We won't talk about that today, but I'm fascinated. LG just came out with it looks like a refrigerator, but it's a grow box. The big joke is, people can just buy it to grow weed, but it's enough for you to grow salads and things like that, or microgreens. And you don't have to produce 100% to make a difference. In World War II, we had the victory gardens, right? So if you can produce enough stuff to take the pressure off the system, you're doing pretty well. And there's a lot of ways you can go. A lot of people don't realize 1,400 square feet could feed a family of 4 if you can grow year round. So there's a lot of places here in the United States that we have really long growing seasons. And so, I think you're going to start seeing some migration just for that reason alone, where people are going to go where they can actually grow. I can grow year round. And right now in my yard, I'm ready to pick broccoli and spinach and the bok choy. And so, and then I'm going to move right in. I'm going to start planting tomatoes in 2 weeks. People are probably listening on the East Coast, and I can't get mine into May. I'll already be eating it, and then my yard is surrounded with fruit trees. And I tell people how they have to think, where can I put something in my yard? Even if you have a patio, you could grow crops. I think you did it in Taiwan. You had your railings to grow crops. So people just need to think through how they can do these things. But I'm actually heading to Florida. I'm actually going to do some training. We do some on-site training now for trading. So I'll be in Orlando. I hope the weather's back to normal by the time I get there, because it's pretty cold right now. But if people want to check us out, go to tradelikeagenius.com. I sent Dave some of the charts in which we've been trading, some of the comments people have about us, our track record. And I think you'll find we're a really good resource for you to help you find ways to navigate, I think, this coming chaos and make money during these times. So I appreciate you having me on, Dave.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll leave all the links in the description box below, because what you're talking about, the private trainings there, if you find something in the site that might be of interest for you, you can reach out to Bob directly here. And also the trillion trees that everybody's talking about across the UN meetings in Davos, how many of those are going to be fruit trees? How many of those are going to be free food trees for community? These are the kind of simple fixes that we need. Appreciate you watching. Hope you got something out of our conversation that could lead you into a different direction about thinking for the future and preparation on all different aspects, spiritually, mentally, physically, financially, and as we move through, because all these changes are going to culminate together. There's going to be a moving, morphing ball of consistent change as we step through these next years. So I'll see you next time. And if you have any questions as well, leave the comments in the description box. Tell us what you think, what kind of ideas you might want to hear us talk about, and I'll make a nice list there, and then we'll take it from the next time we talk. Thanks, Bob. Chat with you later.
Thank you.